Hello, stream. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, let's get cracking. Oh, we have leftover chat from last time. All right, here we go. Chapter 36. I feel as though we have traveled across a kingdom to find a door, but no one told us the door would be locked and bolted and protected by magic besides, said Chet. Tell me I am not the only one who sees this as hopeless. Keep your voice down, said Naya. And take heart, chirped Jem. I have always seen this entire affair as hopeless. Chet glared at him. That is not comforting. Lauren ignored them. We must subdue the guards before we can capture Damaris. I think the two in the hall will not be much of a problem, but if I know Damaris, there will be other guards within her council room, and I heard other voices within besides, voices I do not recognize. Also, though I did not hear him, Gregor will be here. Even saying the man's name sent fear coursing through her very soul. Jem's cheerful smile vanished in an instant. He, too, had met the giant bodyguard. But Naya sliced her hand through the air as though banishing Lauren's warnings. Darkness, take the guards. We can rush the room and take the ones at the door. I trust that you three can subdue one while I kill the other, and slay whoever we find inside as well. You do not know Gregor, said Lauren. Naya spat, sending a thick glob of phlegm to splash on the open pages of a book on the desk beside her. Call him whatever you wish. I will gut him regardless. She didn't really call him anything except his name. Hey, what's up, Traxton? I actually just got back on. I went away for dinner, so... Good timing. Hey, you made it back. Traxton, have you seen the Weremage cover? I'm very excited about it, so if you've seen it already, I apologize for, bringing it up again, but I'm very excited about it. Say what you wish of him, but I will get him regardless. Lauren only shook her head. Chet spoke up. But that is not all we must do, he said. Once we have Damaris, how do you mean to get her out of the fortress? She will not cooperate just because you have her in hand, and we are 15 floors below our only means of escape. They all went quiet at that, but in a moment Jem looked up with a bright smile. The shaft, the same one we came down in. Why do we not use the platform to bring her up, like a tray of food? Lauren nodded eagerly in a slow smile. I'll show it to you really quick. Check it out. Yeah, it's the sploosh one. It's done now. If you've only seen the work in progress. New favorite cover. Anyway, there you go. So good. So good. It's so good. The sunlight, right? Right? Oh my god. So good. Yet the weight of that shaft is back through the mess hall. It cannot be the only... Lauren nodded eagerly and a slow smile overcame her. That could work, and I will admit that the idea of escorting her out of here in such an undignified manner amuses me no end. Yet the weight of that shaft is back through the mess hall. It cannot be the only one, not in a place this large, said Jem. We have come through many passages on our way here. I am certain I can find another. Go, then, and search, said Lauren. Only be careful and do not let yourself come to harm. Yes, my lady, said Jem. He gave her a quick half bow and vanished as Naya rolled her eyes. That leaves us with the council room, said Lauren. We can take the... Naya began. We cannot take the guards, said Lauren, shaking her head, not with any degree of certainty. You are a powerful warrior, Naya, I will not deny that, but I will not hinge all of our success upon your skill with the blade. Unless you have a better suggestion, you have little choice, said Naya, folding her arms. The room fell to silence, for of course Lauren had no answer. Chet shook his head and tugged at the collar of his tunic. Darkness take this place, he muttered. The air is so thick. At his words, an idea came to Lauren in a flash. Fire, she said. We can build a fire of wood, cloth, and parchment so that it fills the hall with smoke. The smoke will drive them out of the council. You know what? Okay. That way it's not just so random that Chet says the exact right thing at the exact right time to give Lauren the idea. Like if it's an established fact that the air down here is hot and thick and stuffy and people keep remarking on it and Lauren notices it, then when Chet says it, it's like, oh, of course he says it. Oh! Darkness take this place, he muttered. The air is so thick. At his words, an idea came to Lauren in a flash. Fire, she said. We can build a fire of wood, cloth, and parchment, so that it fills the halls with smoke. The smoke will drive them out of the council room and make it hard to see, besides. In the confusion, we can snatch Damaris right out of the hands of her guards. Naya frowned, but Lauren could almost see the idea taking root in the mystic's mind. Mayhap, but they will move fast once they smell the smoke and could slip past us before we can act. We should block their first means of escape. The stairwell we passed, said Lauren. The rug was new, but its fibers have already been worn down. It sees much use. That is the route they use to come and go from this floor. We must block the stairwell then, and we should do the same to the hallway at its feet, said Naya. That way the guards in the mess hall will not be able to come and help their lady. But if we fill it with furniture, we will be spotted before we can set the flame. Lauren thought hard. The floor above. If there are not so many of them up there. Naya straightened. Why wonder? Let us go and see. They slipped out and went back the way they had come, quickly reaching the stairwell. They stole up it and looked down the hallway in both directions. At once, Lauren thought she must be right in her guess, for only every other torch was lit and they saw no one in any direction. A quick search of the rooms confirmed it. This floor was used little, if at all, though it still had furniture aplenty for their purpose. We will build a small mountain of it at the top of the stairs, said Lauren. When we are ready... We will build a small mountain of tables and chairs at the top of the stairs. Chairs and tables at the top of the stairs, said Lauren. When we are ready to begin, Chet, you and Jem shall send the furniture crashing down the stairs. We will return to the room where we just were. Damaris and her guards will pass that way, but they will find the hall blocked. By the time they return in our direction, the smoke should be too thick to see. That is when Naya and I will snatch her away and take her down the hall in the other direction. We will take the first stairway up that we can find and meet you there. Then Jem will take us to the shaft leading up if he can find one. Jem burst around the corner just then, bouncing on the balls of his feet. He can, he said. I found it only a short distance away. I poked my head inside just to be sure. It does not have a door for the level below, which is why they did not use it to send Damaris' food. Good work, said Lauren. Despite the gravity of their situation, her mouth split in a grin. We have our plan, then. As far as schemes go, it seems less than simple, grumbled Naya. Simple schemes are more easily countered, said Chet. Lauren stifled a laugh and clapped one hand on each of their shoulders. Simple schemes are more easily countered, said Chet. Elaborate ones have more chances to fail. Lauren stifled a laugh and clapped one hand on each of their shoulders. No, and clapped one hand each on their shoulders. I think that's right. If it's not, Karen will definitely tell me. Enough. This plan will work. I can feel it. Ready yourselves. For now, we snare a merchant. Chapter 36, dear. Oh, I forgot. If you haven't read Weremage yet, unfortunately, everything that's happening at this point in the book is like massive, massive spoilers. So, putting up a spoiler tag, just in case anybody new comes to the stream. And if you're listening, big spoilers. Like, the biggest spoilers. Okay. Chapter 37. Lauren and Naya ran hurriedly from room to room on the lower level. They built stacks of books and drapes beneath tables in half a dozen rooms. At any moment, Lauren feared a guard would come wandering down the hallway and the plan would be half a dozen offices. At any moment, Lauren feared a guard would come wandering down the hallway and the plan would be foiled, but soon they had their little pyres built. Is it a pyre if it's not lit yet? Nope. Yes. Yes, it is. It's fine. Not a problem, is what the nope was. But soon they had their little pyres built, and Lauren ran quickly to the stairwell. On the floor above, she found Chet waiting for her. Beside him was a huge pile of chairs and couches, all of them stacked atop a pair of tables at the head of the stairs. Are you ready? She asked breathlessly. Yes, he said. Then he seized her shirt and drew her in to kiss her. Be safe. And you. She kissed him back. Ahem, said Jem. He did not clear his throat so much as he simply said the word aloud. That's my favorite Gem moment in all of the books so far. Oh, be silent, Gem. She fled back down the stairs to Naya, who had been watching them. As they ran down the hall towards the first room to set their fires, Naya arched an eyebrow. Do I get no such consideration? Lauren ignored that. Here, she took a torch from the sconce and placed it in the mystic's hand before seizing another for herself. They split off and ran to separate rooms. In the first, Lauren thrust the torch into the pile of books. The dry parchment caught at once. The smoke was even thicker than she had thought it would be, and she ran to the next quickly before it grew too heavy to breathe. Too much thick. So thick. Such thick. 2 more fires she set, and at the last one she threw the torch into the flames. She and Naya met each other in the hallway and ran back to the room where they had concocted the plan. They held the edges of their cloaks over their noses and mouths to ease their breathing. Ahem. Scarcely had they shut the door before they heard shouts from Damaris's council room, and they quickly pressed themselves to either side of the door to wait. Many boots came tramping towards them, and Lauren tensed. The party passed them by, the guards rushing their lady towards the stairs. Any moment now, Chet and Jem would throw down their barrier. A crash shook the walls, ending with the sound of splintering wood and splinters. A crash shook the walls, ending with the sound of splintering wood, shards of it sprinkling upon the stone floor. A renewed cry sprang up from the guards, and the sound of running came back towards Lauren. Now, she cried, and she and Naya threw their shoulders into the door. It flew outwards. Like a battering ram, and she felt it strike bodies. 3 guards were bowled to the floor, 2 of them unconscious and the 3rd stunned. Lauren blinked against the smoke that flooded her vision, trying to see the figures ahead of her. She spotted one in a dark green dress pressing a green handkerchief to her mouth. Lauren seized an arm and dragged the figure forwards. The face came into view and her heart skipped a beat. Damaris of the family Yaren stood before her, in Lauren's clutches at last. "We have her," cried Lauren. "Go!" She dragged Damaris off down the hall. The merchant's eyes were still pressed so tight against the smoke that she had not realized who had taken her arm. But Naya did not follow them at once. Behind Damaris there were several other figures, some in the fine clothes of merchants or noblemen, and others in guard uniforms. Naya slew them all. Lauren paused for a moment, horror-struck. First, Naya cut down the unarmed figures in the fine clothing. Then she attacked the guards. The smoke had begun to work on her by then, but the guards were nearly poisoned from it, and they all fell beneath her blade. She hacked them down as though she had gone mad, leaving them mangled on the floor in their own blood. Lauren could not stop it. She could not help them, so she turned and ran. It was a long way before she found another stairwell. This one was plain stone and it was crumbling, so that she had to take care with her steps. But as she started her ascent, Damaris began to recover from the smoke at last. She swiped desperately at her eyes with the sleeve of her dress. Her eyes focused on Lauren's face. Damaris recoiled, trying to snatch her hand away. "You!" she cried. "Guards! Guards! Darkness take..." Lauren wrenched the woman's arm around and behind her back, and with her other hand she covered Damaris's mouth, taking care that the merchant could not bite her. "Be silent, Damaris. You know that I will not kill you, but I can make your path out of this place more painful than it has to be." She shoved the merchant up the stairs, and Damaris had to walk or fall flat on her face. Whenever she felt Damaris... Whenever she tried to break free, Lauren wrenched on her arm again until the woman cried out beneath her hand. But all the while, Lauren looked fearfully back over her shoulder as they went. Suddenly, the thought of Naya coming up behind her was terrifying, for she did not know what strange warlust had seized the mystic. It reminded her of when Mag had fought the Shades in Northwood. She had entered some sort of battle trance and become something inhuman. Only that had been a cold and dead-eyed fury, and Naya's seemed born of pure rage and hatred. It frightened Lauren to her core, and she only wished to get as far away from it as possible. At the top of the stairs, she headed back towards where Jem had shown them the shaft leading up. The smoke had begun to rise to this level, but it was nowhere near as bad, and she found the place easily enough. But when she found the room, only Jem was there. Lauren looked behind him and then inside the room, but Chet was nowhere to be seen. "Jem," she said, panic seizing her limbs, "where is Chet?" "Some guard spotted us just after we threw down the furniture," said Jem. The boy panted heavily as though he had just run a great sprint. "We split up and said we would meet here. He has not returned yet." Lauren spun, dragging Damaris with her as the merchant cried out in protest. She looked both directions down the hallway and then ran to the next intersection to look down both side passages. to look there. Chet was nowhere in sight. She did not know what to do. She had been willing to leave Naya behind, at least while the woman was in her bloodlust. If worst came to worst, Naya could find the shaft and escape on her own. But Chet, how could she go on without him? You cannot, came the answer in her mind. Damaris took advantage of her distraction and opened her mouth to bite down on Lauren's forefinger. But Lauren felt the motion at the last moment and dragged her hand away. The merchant's teeth cut into her skin, but not the flesh. She seized the back of Damaris's hair and slammed the merchant's whole body into the wall, screaming with rage. Still yourself, you noxious witch, she cried. With another great heave, she crushed the merchant into the stone again. I swear by both the moons that I will end you. Damaris only laughed. We both know that that is a lie, Nightblade. Tales of you fly all across the land, of the mercy of your hand, and I know you still better than those stories. Jem, find a rope, said Lauren, or cord or anything to bind her with. The more painful, the better. The boy ran off to obey her. Lauren shoved Damaris into the room with the hatch that led to the shaft and then drew her dagger. She hacked a long strip from the back of Damaris's dress, heedless of the large hole it made there. Her knife slipped for a moment and drew a thin line of blood from Damaris's shoulder blade, and the woman hissed with pain. My apologies, my lady, said Lauren. Mayhap if you struggled less, that would not have happened. She balled up most of the cloth and shoved it into Damaris's mouth, tying it in place with the rest. Damaris grunted as Lauren pulled the knot as tight as she could. Jem returned in a moment with a thin rope that looked as though it had once belonged to fine drapes, though Lauren could not imagine why there would be window drapes in this place so far from the sunlight. Lauren, she whirled. Chet stood there in the doorway. His clothes were so scorched that she hardly recognized them, and he was covered in soot, but his skin was unmarked by blade or burn. Lauren's eyes filled with tears in an instant. Chet, she said, thank the sky, I thought you were lost. I meant to go and find you. That is all right. I am here. He went to her and put a hand on her arm. You have Damaris. I can scarcely believe it. It worked, said Lauren. Now come quickly and help me get her into the shaft. Jem already had the thing open and was dragging on the rope to lower the wooden platform so that they could put Damaris onto it. Of course, mumbled Chet. Only forgive me. The smoke. His eyes wandered, taking her in and then looking to the door of the room. It was as though he were dazed or half senseless. It was as though he was dazed. She looked at him with concern. Are you all right? What is wrong? Are you hurt? But before he could answer her, Lauren heard footsteps from the hall. They all froze, even Damaris, and Lauren watched the doorway with wide and fearful eyes. The footsteps stopped just out of sight. Then, with two great staggering steps, Naya appeared in the door. Lauren's first instinct was to loose a sigh of relief, but then she tensed again. The mystic had taken a wound in the fighting. It looked to be a stab wound from a knife, but it was high on her shoulder and did seem fatal. Did not seem fatal. That was not what gave Lauren pause. It was the look in Naya's eye. Still furious, still filled with the lust for blood and death. Lauren felt that she must do something, but she did not know what. Naya, said Chet, you are here too. What a relief. It did not seem that he saw any sign of the woman's dangerous mood. You, growled Naya. She staggered into the room, and Lauren saw that the stab wound was not her only injury. Her left arm was badly burned near the shoulder. You. The sword fell from her hand, and relief washed through Lauren. But then Naya strode into the room and seized Chet by the front of his shirt. Before anyone could react, the mystic drew her dagger and slit Chet's throat. Dun, dun, dun. Chapter 37 done. Hilarious word win. I get it. I see what you did there. Chapter 38. No. Lauren fell to her knees beside Chet as he slumped to the ground. She seized his throat, trying hopelessly to staunch the blood as it poured out over her fingers. Her dreams played in her mind. The dreams where Chet always died, always, just as he was dying now. Jem gave a scream and launched himself at Naya, but the mystic struck him a heavy backhanded blow, and he landed hard on the floor. Damaris struggled against her bonds, trying to fight to her feet. Naya kicked her back down, and she lay still. Then Naya seized Lauren by the back of her cloak and hauled her up. Stop your fretting, Nightblade, she growled. Look. Lauren struggled against her, fighting to reach for Chet again. She knew she could not save him, but darkness take her if she would not be with him as his life slipped away, if she would not give him at least that comfort. Then she froze. From Chet's eyes poured a glow she knew well, mage light, and as she watched, his form began to change. His skin darkened and his sandy brown hair turned black. When the glow faded from his eyes, he was Chet no longer, but Huel. He raised a hand, reaching for her, but she could not know whether it was in anger or in fear, for the blood that bubbled up around his teeth was all she could see. Life fled him at last, and his hand fell to the stone floor. Nia let go, and Lauren jerked away from her. How did you... Sky above, girl. Nia's voice was a low growl, still holding some of the fury of her battle rage. Look at him. He wears different clothes. Chet wore boots into the stronghold, but Huel has shoes on. She spoke the truth. Huel's clothes were burned and torn, but they were clearly different. In her relief at seeing Chet again, Lauren had not seen the details of his appearance. I thought... I know what you thought, said Nia, but we are out of time. All of Yawamba will soon be mustered against us, and we must escape before that happens. But Chet, the real Chet, where is... Lauren! Chet's voice rang out from the hallway. A moment later, he appeared there in the doorway, gripping its edges with his hands. Lauren ran to him with a cry, but she stopped a pace away, hesitant. Sky above. Listen, girl, said Nia. Look at his boots. Lauren did, and they were Chet's, and she leaped forwards to embrace him. He started, surprised, but then his arms folded around her. What is it? He said. What is wrong? Gemini became separated, and over her shoulder he spotted Huel's body. Lauren followed his gaze. Do. He froze, and she knew that he had seen Huel's body. Lauren pushed away from him. Lauren pushed away from him and followed his gaze. He took your likeness, and when I saw him, I thought you... And then she recalled her dream. Chet, in the depths of Yawamba, before Damaris, his throat cut. Even Auntie's appearance, over and over again, every night. Hey, chicken sandwich. Weremage, she thought. All at once she understood, and she began to laugh. It rang from her clear and loud, mayhap her first true laugh since that final night with Zane upon the seat. She laughed until her knees were weak, and she had to hold Chet to remain standing. Lauren, I do not understand what has happened, said Chet. You will, she said, touching his cheek. Everything, I promise you. I will tell you all, but after we have escaped. That may be a problem, said Jem. He had thrust his head into the shaft with the wooden platform, and now he withdrew it. The way is shut. What do you mean, said Lauren. She went to him and looked for herself. Far above she could see a large metal grate. It had been placed to block the way up, with only a tiny gap in its middle so that the rope could run through it. It looks to block the top 5 levels, if I guessed the distance correctly, said Jem. A measure to prevent escape by the very route we had planned to take. Lauren turned to Damaris, who sat against the wall now. Though the merchant's mouth was covered, Lauren could see the smile in her eyes. She knelt and pulled off the gag. How can we escape? She said. You cannot, said Damaris. Her voice was calm, measured, and utterly in control. You will die here, slain by my soldiers. Your only possible consolation will be taking my own life before that happens, and I call that a small price, for your end is assured. Lauren saw no doubt whatsoever in the woman's face, and it sent a chill through her. But Nia seized the front of Damaris's dress and dragged her to her feet, slamming her back into the wall. Do not toy with us, wretch, said Nia. There is a way out, a way that you would use to escape if Yawamba were besieged beyond hope of victory. Tell us where to find it. Damaris cocked her brows. I do not know you, woman. You will know me before the end, hissed Nia. Tell us how to get out. I did not have sushi. We went to the Mexican restaurant in town. It was lovely. Never, said Damaris. Not in a lifetime could you understand the depths of my loathing for this girl with her simpering eyes and stolen cloak. I've stolen many things, but not this, said Lauren, smiling fiercely at the merchant. The cloak you gave me freely, and, too, you drove your daughter away from you and into my company. You may blame yourself for that as well. Damaris jerked without warning in Nia's arms, breaking free and flinging herself at Lauren. But with her hands bound behind her, it was a feeble lunge, and Lauren caught her by the shoulders. Damaris thrashed and struggled, screaming in Lauren's face. Never speak of her to me, you simpering sow. Too much simpering. You mewling sow, you will beg me for death before I am through with you. I have spent a lifetime plumbing the depths of pain. I will plunge you into them again and again until you have forgotten your own name, until you have forgotten everything but agony. Lauren pushed her slightly away. She drew back her hand and gave Damaris a calm, measured, crushing slap across the face. No, you will not. Chet put a hand on her shoulder. We've remained here overlong, he said. If we cannot use the shaft to escape, we should find a better place to hide. Naya seized Damaris once again and spun her around before driving a knee into her gut. The merchant gave a thin grunt, wheezing as she tried to suck air into her lungs. Tell us, said Naya. Tell us before I end you. Damaris only laughed. The mystic squeezed her by the throat, cutting off the laugh and pressing her windpipe until her eyes bugged out. I give you one final chance. Speak. I have killed many here today, and I will kill more before the end. Speak, or you are next. She drew her knife and pressed the point against Damaris's jugular. Stop it, said Lauren. She seized Naya's wrist and pulled it away. That is not the mission. The mission? Snarled Naya. The mission now becomes escape, and if we cannot capture Damaris, better to kill her. Our situation is not hopeless. We saw on the way in how sparsely populated this place is. We may still make our way to the top. Lauren's hand tightened on Naya's wrist. And we may need Damaris as a bargaining chip. Without her, our chances dwindle. Rage still burned in the mystic's eyes, plain for all to see. But a spark of cunning flashed within them, and Lauren felt the tension in her arm fade away. Very well, she said in a low voice, because we need her. Lauren nodded and then turned to Damaris. That is twice now when I could have killed you and did not. That is in repayment, for you have done so twice for me. And never a greater mistake, hissed Damaris. But you have never had power over me, girl. You have only ever called off the trained dogs who march by your side, the wizard who became a dean, and now this mystic. You are a fine one to talk, said Lauren, arching an eyebrow. When have you ever held a blade yourself, rather than commanding the one in Gregor's hand? Gag her. She turned away as Chet did as she asked, but then a thought struck her, spurred by her own words. Gregor. Hold a moment, she said, and turned to Damaris. I did not see Gregor with you below. Is he here in Yawamba? The merchant froze. Above the gag, she studied Lauren with narrow eyes. You seem fairly obsessed with this Gregor fellow, said Naya scornfully. Is he another lover, mayhap, whose affections you scorned? Chet glared at that, but Lauren ignored it. He is her guard, and he is loyal to her beyond measure or reason. Her other guards obey her to the letter, and for their duty is to their family. If Damaris ordered them to kill us at all costs, even her own life. If Damaris ordered them to kill us at all costs, even her own life. That could be better written. If Damaris ordered them to kill us at all costs, even if it meant her own life, they would obey. Lauren smiled at Damaris. But not Gregor. If we offered her life in exchange for our escape, Gregor would accept in a heartbeat. Naya's hand tightened on Damaris's shoulder. We will not surrender her. Of course not, said Lauren, her smile broadening. But Gregor will believe that we will. He knows I am an honorable thief. Damaris screamed into her gag and lunged for Lauren again, but Naya dragged her back. Lauren looked over to Chet and Jem, who wore hopeful smiles for the first time since they had all entered the room. Find us some Yeren guards, my friends. It is time we got out of this place. Untitled document. Damaris struggled all the while they dragged her down the hallways. Naya held her arm across the woman's throat, holding her in front as they sought for guards to bargain with. They had to find a staircase down to the next level, for the one they were on was still abandoned. Eventually, they neared the mess hall they had snuck through earlier. Around the corner from it, they stopped, and Naya looked to Lauren. With a nod, Lauren ushered her around the corner. Guards of Yeren! She cried. The room went utterly silent, and everyone within froze. The guards had mustered in groups around the tables on either side of the room. It seemed that two captains had gathered their men around to inform them of what had happened and to issue orders. Lauren saw that many of the men had burns on their bodies or their clothing and wondered how long they had been fighting the flames, trying to find their lady among the smoke and the blaze. Now they edged away from the tables and towards the center of the room, hands going to the hilts of their swords. No, you're thinking of cow, chicken sandwich. Chicken sandwich. That conversation was about how cow is a gendered insult in the UK. That is enough of that, said Naya, tightening her grip on Damaris's neck. Stay your hands or see her body broken. They froze, looking at each other uneasily. Then one of them stepped forwards, a dour man. Everybody's dour in this book. A barrel-chested fellow with a thick beard flecked with gray. Unhand Our Lady, or things will not go well for you. We will not, said Lauren, not until we have spoken to Gregor. At that, the man paused. He glanced at Damaris. From beneath her gag, she shouted, and with her eyes wide, she shook her head back and forth. But her words could not be understood, and the guard captain frowned. Run and fetch Gregor, he said to one of the men. Captain, he lifted 3 fingers. Do as I say, and do not return without him. Am I understood? The guard gave Lauren and the others a worried look. Yes, Captain. The guard ran out the room's other exit at once. The captain turned back to Lauren. What do you want? Assurance of escape, said Lauren. Once we are safely on our way out of Yawamba, your lady will be freed. I cannot allow that, he said at once. Lauren smiled. We will see once Gregor arrives. Where is he? Not far, said the captain. Good then, said Lauren. If it is all the same to you, we will be in the hallway with your lady to ensure that none of your men think to try their luck with an attack. The captain took a quick step forwards. Naya jerked Damaris up until the merchant was forced to stand upon her toes. The captain froze. Do not take her out of our sight, he said. Very well, said Lauren. She and my friend will stand in the doorway where you may see her. They backed away slowly, with Lauren and Chet and Jem taking up position just to the left of the door. Naya stood in sight of the guards, holding Damaris before her. The merchant continued to struggle and fight, flinging her body, hands back and forth where they were bound before her. Be still, snarled Naya. She drove a fist into Damaris' side, causing her to groan and sag to the side. Naya, said Lauren, enough. If you harm her too badly, they will not help us at all. I will do more than harm her if she does not stop her squirming, said Naya. Chet looked up and down the hallway. What is taking the guard so long, he said. I thought Gregor was nearby. If I know him, he searches high and low for Damaris, said Lauren. He might have gone farther than the captain knew, but she understood his anxiety. She, too, felt more ill at ease the longer they remained here. Still yourself, witch, said Naya. Her arm constricted on Damaris' throat just a bit more. I think you squeeze her too tight, said Jem, frowning. She is twitching. Lauren glanced over. Though they were still bound before her, Damaris' arms were indeed spasming back and forth. Or rather, her hands were, in jerky little motions. Then Lauren's eyes shot wide. The merchant was not struggling against her bonds. She was signaling to the guard captain. Naya, run, she cried, but too late. A door down the hall burst open, and men in chain shirts and green cloaks came storming into view with battle cries. Naya froze in shock, and Damaris jerked away from the woman's grasp, then ran stumbling into the mess hall before she could be reclaimed. Lauren leaped forwards to help, but only in time to see Damaris turn beside the captain and rip the gag away from her mouth with a feral grin. Feral again. Kill them, cried Damaris. Burn this place to the ground if you must. Bring me their corpses. With a snarl, Naya drew her sword, but Lauren seized her arm and dragged her back. You cannot take them all, she cried. Run. They did, turning and fleeing down the hallway as an army surged after them. Chapter 38, done, motherfucker. I think 39 is a long-ass chapter. Yeah. Yep. Long as fuck. We cannot leave without Damaris, said... Chapter 39, we cannot leave without Damaris, said Naya as they ran. We cannot capture her and live, replied Lauren. If you turn back and attack our guards, they will overwhelm you. Now we can only escape and try again another day. You should have let me kill her. Lauren did not answer, but she wondered if the mystic was right. Yet Cal had been clear. Justice was worthless if delivered in secret. Should Damaris die here in the bowels of this mountain, who would ever even know? Especially if Lauren and the rest of them did not escape alive to spread the tale. And if they killed her like common assassins, that would make them no better than the traitors they fought against, who had tried to murder the High King. I'm assuming that's a Kappa chicken sandwich? What with the big fucking gigantic spoiler tag on the screen? I'm just assuming that's a Kappa. Tag on the screen? Okay. But she had no time for such thoughts, not if you wanted to get them all out alive. Kappa Pride. They ran up the first stairway they saw, but it only took them up one floor, and they did not know which direction to turn. We do not know the way out, said Chet. We will never get out of here before they catch us. Oh, stop your whining, said Naya. There was no other choice, said Lauren. We have to keep looking and hope for the best, one floor at a time. They turned this way and that through the halls, trying to create a weaving, winding path so that they could not be followed easily. Lauren, Chet, and Jem wore only cloth, and Naya was strong enough to run fast even with her chain shirt, so that they soon left the guards behind them. But they could hear the pursuit, their shouts and footsteps thundering in the halls. At last, Lauren spotted another stairway. There, she cried, leading the way to it. But at the foot of the stairs they skidded to a halt. Above they heard more shouts and the sound of running. Another group of guards and this one making their way down towards them. We are trapped, whispered Lauren. Then it is a fight after all, said Chet. He looked to Naya. I suppose we should be glad we have your sword. Wait, said Jem. He looked up at Lauren with wide eyes. There may be a way. The shaft. She frowned at him. It is shut, Jem. We cannot go up that way. Not up, he said. Down. Her mind raced. Down, down into impenetrable darkness, but where they had heard the sound of running water. It might be a river deep enough to swim. It might be only a few fingers deep. Or the rope might not be directly over the water at all and end 10 paces above a rocky cavern floor, and they would kill themselves if they tried to jump. But they did not know that, and they did know what would happen if they stayed and fought the guards. We must try it, she said. Uh-oh, somebody's not having a good time outside. We must try it, she said. Come. They ran on, and now they ducked their heads into each room as they went, searching for one that had a hatch. Chet found one in a few moments. Lauren threw it open and looked up just to be sure, but there was the metal grate, blocking the way in this shaft just as it had in the other. Random quote marks, random quote marks. They don't need to be there, random quote marks. Very well, she said. Down it is. They slipped through the hatch as quickly as they could, with Naya going last. She pulled the hatch as far shut as she could, though she could not latch it from the inside. It would have to do. Lauren led them all down the rope. 15 floors they had descended before they found Damaris. Lauren thought they passed at least 15 more, but it was hard to keep count, for no light came through the hatches on the lower levels. Soon they were in pitch blackness, and when they looked up they could only barely glimpse the soft glow that had lit their way before. How will we even know when we reach the bottom? Called Jem. The sound of rushing water had grown loud enough now that he had to raise his voice to be heard. I imagine the rope will end, said Lauren. That is not comforting. That's Chet's catchphrase in this book. Lauren chuckled, and then she cried out, for the wall had vanished under her feet. She had reached the bottom of the shaft, and when she put out her foot to take the next step down, it met only empty air. For a terrifying moment she swung there in the darkness, swaying back and forth on the rope as she tried to tighten her grip. Lauren, cried Chet, for he could not see her in the darkness. I'm all right, she said. The shaft is ended, but the rope is not. Can you see the floor? Said Naya. I cannot see anything at all, thought Lauren irritably, but she only said no. Hand over hand she lowered herself once more, but now the way was harder without something to brace herself on. Her hands began to chafe on the rope, and she did not know how much longer she could keep her grip. As long as you must, she told herself, tightening her grip again. This place must have a bottom. They would reach it eventually. And then the rope ended. Lauren felt it with her feet first, where they were wrapped around the line. Suddenly they encountered a curving loop at the bottom of the rope, where it turned and ran back up the shaft to the crank that must be at the top. She went a little farther down and stuck out her feet, but she already knew she would not find the ground. The rushing water was loud, thundering below them, but too far for her to reach. We are at the bottom, she called up. Thank the sky, said Jem. I mean the bottom of the rope, said Lauren. The floor is still far below. Ah, said Jem. That is somewhat less good news. What do we do? Said Chet. A moment, said Lauren. I am thinking. At least she was able to put a knee in the loop of the rope and take some of the weight off her arms, but that only made her realize that her friends had no such support and their grip must be as tight as her own. Her mind raced, desperate for an answer. They could risk the jump, though she could not be sure. It sounded as though the water was below them. They could drop from the end of the rope and hope that they would land in the river that would carry them out into the valley. But then again, if the river indeed emerged out into the open, would they not be able to see the light of the opening from here? See. She cursed the darkness. If she only had a torch or moon's light or... Lauren almost struck herself, she was so angry. You stupid, stupid fool, she thought. The Maidstones. She had them in her cloak, the same place she always kept them, but she had not used them since Ammon and had nearly forgotten about them. I cannot hold on to this rope forever, you know, said Jem. The boy tried to fill his voice with bravado, but Lauren could sense the fear quivering beneath it. Even one so strong as I am has his limits. One moment, she said, fumbling with her within her cloak pocket. With hasty fingers, she seized a mage stone and broke off a piece, which she shoved in between her lips. Then she reached for the back of her belt and drew her dagger. The cavern erupted in light, silver and pale, like the glow of the elves. Now Lauren could see as though she stood in the sun, or better, for every detail was enhanced, from the ridges in the rocky cavern to the cobwebs that collected in the corners. She looked down and was glad she had not risked the jump. There was a river, yes, mayhap 15 paces below them, but it twisted and turned through a fissure in the floor, and just beneath them was only rock, pocked with spikes of stone that jutted up from the ground towards them, like hungry teeth eager to devour. "We cannot jump," said Lauren. "There's only stone below us." "What?" said Chet. "How do you know?" "My eyes are adjusting," she lied. "Are you not getting used to the darkness?" "Then what do we do?" said Naya, her irritation plain. Lauren looked about. She could see other ropes hanging down from other holes in the ceiling, other shafts leading up to other wooden platforms, and all of them too far away to reach. But then she turned the other way and saw that they were very near to the cavern wall, and there were shelves in the rock there. But it was at least 5 paces away, too far to jump and certainly too far to reach. "We must swing," said Lauren. "Swing the rope. This way." She reached up and tapped Jem's leg on the side where the rock wall was. He did the same to Chet, who did the same to Naya. "I see nothing that way," said Naya. "Trust me," said Lauren. "Draw back your legs and... now!" They did it, back and forth, back and forth. At first they were awkward and uncoordinated, but as they all sensed the rhythm of each other, they soon moved in unison. The rope only moved a pace at first, and then 2. Then they got within reach of the shelf, but Lauren missed her grasp. She tightened her grip on the dagger with one hand and her hold on the rope with the other. "This time," she cried, and when she swung towards the shelf, she reached it at last. She threw herself onto the stone, and a lump in the rock struck her in the ribs, making her wince. But she seized the rope and pulled it tight, and just managed to keep from sliding off the edge again by wrapping her arm around a lump in the stone. The rope hung there, her 3 friends upon it, dangling over the rocky floor far below. "Quickly," she said through gritted teeth. "Climb down." Jem descended like a spider, and she sighed with relief once his weight was off the line. Then came Chet, and by the time only Naya was left, it was easy. The mystic reached the shelf at last, and Lauren released the rope with a sigh. But above her she saw that the other 3 were fumbling blindly in the dark, their hands on the wall to hold themselves steady. "We have to climb down from here," she said. "The wall is rough, there are handholds aplenty." "How can you see?" said Chet. "It is black as tar." "What matters is that I can see," said Lauren. "I will go down first. When I tell you to, guide your foot to the edge, and I will give you your first handhold." They did as she bid, and one by one they slid over the edge and began to climb down the stone wall. Lauren put the dagger in her teeth, careful not to let it touch her lips, for it was frighteningly sharp, and she was gratified to see that its magical... With its help, she took them all the long, dark, frightening way to the floor of the cavern, and when they had reached it, they sighed with relief. "If anything, I can see less than before," said Jem. "If this place is so dark, is there even a way out?" "The water must emerge somewhere," said Lauren. "It forms the stream in the valley outside Yawamba. Chet, put your hand on my shoulder and the rest of you in a chain. I will take us to the water, and we will follow it out." So they progressed to the water's edge. Lauren could see that the river was nowhere near so deep as she had thought. She doubted it came up to her chest. But it was wide, and the way beside it was not always clear, so that it took them some time to follow it through the cavern. When they reached the end of it, Lauren hoped to find a curve in the rock, some sort of passage that would take them to the open air beyond. But to her dismay, the water ended at a wall, against which it frothed and bubbled. "The water has ended," she said. "What do you mean it has ended?" said Naya. "It dives under the cave wall here. If it emerges in the open air beyond, it goes underground for a ways beforehand." "Then there is no way out?" said Chet. "There is," said Lauren. She turned to look at him, but then realized that was pointless, for he could not see her. "The river?" Naya snorted. "Underground? We do not know how far it is. We could drown. Yet there is no other way." "Lauren, I cannot swim," said Jem, and now all his bravado had fled him. She cursed inwardly, for she had forgotten. "I can take you, Jem. You can hold my shoulders." "He had better come with me," said Naya. "You are not as strong as I am." Lauren studied the mystic for a moment, thankful now for the darkness. "I would rather bring him myself," she said carefully. "Jem and I have done something like this together before." That was true enough. In the city of Wellmont, they had swung under a gate that blocked the river. Swum. But in truth, Lauren was not so sure that she trusted Naya with the boy's life. The mystic had always scorned him, likely thinking him too young to be on such an important quest. If the way became blocked and Naya faced the choice of saving the boy or saving her own skin, Lauren did not think it would be a difficult decision. Naya only shrugged. If you insist. Lauren, are you certain this is the best way? Said Chet. Of course not, she told him, but it is the only way. But it is the only way. Now come, dawdling here will not make the swim easier. She shucked off her boots and tied them to her belt. They would not help with her swimming, but once they emerged out the other side, she could not go barefoot all the way back to their camp. Quickly she helped the others do the same, for their fingers fumbled in the darkness, and soon they were ready. All right, said Lauren. Jem, take my shoulders. Follow the flow of the water. It comes out the other side in the end, so it knows where it is going. Good luck. Luck, said Chet, laughing suddenly. How can we think ours is good after all that has happened? Naya's glare deepened and... Naya scowled at him, likely thinking... Naya scowled in the direction of his voice, likely thinking no one could see her in the pitch-dark cavern. Then, without warning, the mystic flung herself into the water. After letting Jem take a deep breath, Lauren followed. The water snatched her at once and dragged her into the tunnel beneath the rock. Immediately it slammed her into the wall, and she felt Jem's grip shift. Keeping one hand on her dagger hilt, she reached up with the other and clutched his arm. It was useless to try and swim, for the current was too strong here. She only tried to twist and turn so that the water pushed her into the rocks instead of the boy, and used her legs to brace against the impact. Chet and Naya would not be able to see a thing, and Lauren only hoped they did not take too hard of a battering. Her lungs grew weak and then began to burn. The tunnel ahead showed no sign of ending. She took her hand from Jem's arm and tried to swim as best she could, desperate to speed their progress. If she was losing her breath, Jem must be near to drowning. Naya and Chet were nowhere to be seen. Had they become separated? Did the water run in different passages, one she had missed as she passed? A dim light appeared, different from the night vision of the dagger, illuminating the channel. The end of the tunnel at last, but though they could see the glow, they still could not see the exit, and spots had begun to dance in Lauren's vision. Around her neck she felt Jem's grip slacken. No, she thought. She seized his arm and kicked as hard as she could, striking for the light ahead. Hold on, you little brat. Sunlight erupted above them, almost blinding in its intensity. Lauren shoved her dagger into its sheath and swam up, still clutching at Jem. Her head broke the surface with a great splash, and she sucked in a greedy lungful of air. The shore was only a few paces away, and she kicked for it. Naya was there already, on hands and knees in the grass, gasping and heaving. Lauren flung Jem up on the bank first and then dragged herself from the water. Her black cloak had become dead weight, trying to drag her into the river again, so she undid the clasp and threw it off. She fell on the shore as all her strength left her at once, and her chest heaved with her breathing. But then she thought of Jem and rose once more. She crawled to the boy and flipped him on his back, pounding on his chest. For one heart-stopping instant he lay still, but almost at once he coughed up water. She hauled him up to sitting and bent him forwards, and he kept coughing until phlegm came out. Lauren looked up towards the stream. Chet. Where is Chet? Then he appeared, breaking the surface just as she had, a little upstream. He saw them and fought to swim to the shore, gasping just as the rest of them were. Lauren sighed with relief. Chet had always been a good swimmer. Is he all right? Said Chet once he had gained the land. Well enough, considering, said Lauren, giving Jem's back a final pound. Leave off, said the boy, waving a limp arm in her direction. I'm fine. Lauren smiled down at him, but the smile died on her lips as a horn cut the air. She had not had time to take in their surroundings, but now she looked up. They were at the foot of the stronghold, with its peaked prow jutting out into the air straight overhead. A few hundred paces away was the bottom of the long, winding ramp that led up to the main entrance, and down that ramp came figures running and shouting, their weapons drawn. They've spotted us, said Lauren. She fought for her feet and snatched up her cloak. Come, we must run if we are to survive. Quickly she removed her boots from around her waist and pulled them on. Naya struggled to don her own boots, her movements slow and sluggish. I would wager that now you wish we had killed the guards in the valley as we approached. I do not, but thank you, said Lauren, frowning. Now is not the time for gloating, but for running. Run they did, following the stream. Soon the guards were behind them, giving chase along the opposite side of the river. But Lauren and her friends were waterlogged and exhausted from the swim, so that they could not gain much ground, and soon their lungs burned anew. We cannot lose them, said Chet. We will bring them right back to... We cannot lose them, said Chet. We will bring them right back to Uzo and Annis. We're not gaining any ground, said Chet. They will follow us straight back to Uzo and Annis. And Lauren almost stopped in her tracks and only resumed her flight when Chet snatched her arm and pulled her along. Shiun, where is Shiun? She will look after herself, said Naya. Likely she fled the fortress as soon as the alarm was raised, for who could think that we would escape? It was not a comforting thought that Shiun would leave them to their fate, but certainly they could not go back for her now. If they somehow evaded the guards, they would return later, but she did not see how that would happen. And then they ran over a hillock, and an arrow struck Lauren in the chest. She stumbled in her run and barely kept herself from falling on her face, sinking to her knees instead. Dazed, she stared at the feathered shaft that protruded from her torso, on the left side and just under the collarbone. Her gaze drifted upwards. 3 guards stood there. Mayhap they were the ones Shiun had shown to Lauren on the valley floor 2 days ago when they had discovered Yuamba. Mayhap they were another 3. But one of them had a bow, and she had loosed the shaft that now pierced Lauren's body. Was that the arrowhead she could feel, protruding out from her back? She tried to lift her arm to see, but it did not move. She lifted her right arm instead, reaching behind her back, but a pain shot through her, and she dropped her hand. Someone was screaming. Who was screaming? She looked up. Chet. Chet, who held her shoulders, who was trying to place his body between her and the archer. Why do that? She thought. I've been shot already. It struck her then that that was a foolish thought, and her mind was wandering. Someone else was there, Shiun, her dark eyes wide and anxious as she beheld Lauren's wound, and looking over Chet's shoulder, Lauren could see 2 of the Yeren guards had been shot as well. And lay still on the ground. Shiun must have done it. The 3rd guard lay on his back, hands raised feebly, as Naya plunged her dagger into his chest, over and over and over. Lauren fell backwards and knew nothing more. Chapter 39 done, motherfucker. Chapter 40. Blinding pain was her only companion when she awoke, but that was better than the memory of a nightmare. Done chapter, woo! Lauren tried to sit up. She failed, gasped, and lay still. Her chest was wrapped with bandages that covered a great pad of cloth. She tried to probe at it with her left hand, but as soon as her arm moved, the pain redoubled. Hissing through her teeth, she waited for it to subside before using her right hand instead, though that limb was weak and shaking. Touching the pad of cloth was not too bad, but when she tried to lift it, dried blood peeled from her skin. She winced and left it alone and then looked around. Where were the others? She knew she was in her tent, but Chet was not with her, and she heard no movement outside. Is anyone there? She croaked. She heard movement on the grass, and then the tent flap flew open. Chet eagerly poked his head in, eyes shining as he beheld her. You are awake, he said, his voice shaking. I am, and I am thirsty. Of course, he said. 1 moment. He vanished and then returned shortly with her water skin. She could not sit up without his help, but once she did, she drank deep, ignoring the way it burned in her throat. When she was done, she patted his arm and he moved the skin away. How long? She said. It is the evening of the day after our mission. Lauren's eyes shot wide, and she tried to look out through the tent flap. They have not found us? We moved the camp, said Chet. Shiun found this place, and we have been on constant watch in case they draw near it. And then sometime during the night, they simply gave up. Why, said Lauren. Why would they? She frowned, looking into her lap. Then a guess came to her, and she surged forwards, trying to leave the tent. But with a grimace and a cry, she fell back, and Chet only just caught her in time. Sky above, Lauren, give yourself a moment to rest. Give yourself a moment at least. You took an arrow. That is no scratch. Once more she looked at the bandages on her chest. Who did this? Naya, she guessed in her mind. Uzo, said Chet. He has some little skill as a healer, it seems, though he told us often that he is no master at it. Yet it seems the wound could have been much worse. He said it struck only flesh, nothing vital. Nowhere near too bad as your wound. Nowhere near as bad as your wound upon the seat, then, said Lauren. Though he tried to restrain it, a guffaw burst out. Darkness take you, Lauren. We are not in a contest to see who can suffer the greater wound. Lauren smiled at him and put her hand on his cheek. Did everyone get out safely? They did, he said, but then his face darkened and his voice grew quiet. All but Weath, of course. Hey, KJ Jones. I'm sorry, said Lauren. Then she shook her head. Darkness take me, my thoughts are wandering. But we have little time. I know why the Yarans stopped searching for us. I know why the Yarans stopped searching for us. They mean to leave Yawamba, said Chet. Annis guessed the same thing. She said it was a good thing Damaris did not know she was close by, or else she would never have left the stronghold. But now the family Yaran feels too exposed, for their location is known, and mayhap word has already reached them that Cal marches west towards them. Whatever the reason, they are preparing to leave. Then this is our last chance to stop Damaris, said Lauren. We must... She will ride out ahead of the rest, said Chet. Annis guessed that too. She thinks she knows the route Damaris will take, unless there is some road west of the mountain she can escape to. But Uzo and Shiun have gone to guard the main road, and if Damaris passes that way, they will see her. If they believe they can take her guards, they will. If not, they will mark her passing so that we may follow in due time. Lauren stared at him in wonder. Annis did all this? Annis and Naya, said Chet, smiling. Naya commanded Uzo and Shiun to go. They should return in a few days, but all of the plans came from Annis. That girl has more wit than even I realized, said Lauren, shaking her head. But then something he had said caught her attention, and she frowned at him. You said Naya told Uzo and Shiun to go. She did not accompany them? She is here, said Chet. She took wounds herself, you will remember. I do, said Lauren. Only I wish Uzo and Shiun were not alone. They will not endanger themselves, said Chet. He sat back, leaning on his hands. I, for one, am only glad we escaped in time and that you were still alive. I am too, said Lauren, smiling at him. Despite the pain from her wound, she felt as though a great weight had left her shoulders. Indeed, my mind is easier than it has been in some time. Even though we lost Damaris, said Chet, his brows raising. She thought of her dream and then of Huel's corpse. Even then, she said softly. He shook his head. Well, then my mind is eased as well. Only now I should go. Go, said Lauren. Where? To hunt, he said. Our supplies run low, and Naya fears to visit that little town nearby in case the Yarans have placed agents there to watch for us. But I will send Annis in to sit with you and help you if you should need anything. Lauren nodded. He kissed her forehead and left. A while later she heard footsteps again and smiled as the tent flap opened. But it was not Annis. It was Naya. Her regular clothes were gone, replaced with dark brown trousers and a cream-colored tunic, the same as Lauren's. It was the nondescript outfit most of them had worn on the journey to avoid attracting attention. Hello, said Lauren softly. You look well enough, said Naya. I suppose I am, said Lauren. At least I am not dead, though not for lack of trying. Lauren smiled. How is your shoulder? Naya glanced at her own bandages. She wore fewer than Lauren did. It pains me less and less. I've been going for walks. They make it easier. I may do the same, said Lauren. It seemed as though Naya meant to say something else, or mayhap even to come inside the tent to continue speaking. But there came the snap of a twig, and she looked off to the side. She frowned at Lauren. You have another visitor. When you decide you are strong enough for walking, tell me. I shall bring you along. She vanished from sight, only to be replaced by Annis. The girl crawled into the tent with her and took Lauren's hand with a happy smile. It is good to see you awake. And it is good to see you at all, said Lauren. I have heard that you have become quite the master strategist while I have been resting. Annis's cheeks darkened. I suppose I have been industrious in my planning. Thank you for seeing to things after I was injured, said Lauren. When I woke, I feared that we had lost everything. I should have known better. Stop it, said Annis, shaking her head. You make it sound as though I have performed great deeds. I have only looked at maps and read a few signs. Kingdoms have been conquered, or more importantly, saved, by ones who sit and stare at maps, said Lauren. Our party would neither have come so far nor come so close to achieving our aims if it were not for you. I'm glad you and Jem are with me. I will. Okay, no. So, So after this Weremage, after I finish Weremage, I'm going to go through Karen's edits of Shadeborn, which should only be 1 or 2 days, and then I'm doing The Alchemist's Touch. But Academy Journals 2 and 3 don't need to be re-edited. They never had the crap editor in them. At the boy's name, Annis's smile dampened considerably, though she tried to maintain it, but Lauren saw and frowned. What is it? Nothing, said Annis. Nothing you should trouble yourself over at any rate. You should be resting. Lauren raised her hands. The left one moved far more slowly than the right. I am resting, and I cannot do anything else. Speak on. Did Jem do something wrong? Annis shook her head quickly. No, not at all. Only... Do you remember the night before you went to Yuamba when I decided to tell him how I felt? How can I forget, said Lauren, smirking. I've rarely seen you with your blood up to that extent. Well, I did it, said Annis miserably, and in return, he told me that he felt affection for another. Lauren cocked her head, wondering at the girl's despair. Another? Who? Then a horrid thought struck her. Oh, sky above, do not tell me he means me. Annis snorted, which Lauren did not think was very complimentary, and shook her head. No, it is Uzo. Lauren only stared for a moment, then the meaning of it assembled in her mind. She closed her eyes and heaved a deep sigh. I see. That's... I am sorry, Annis. Why should you be? Said Annis, shrugging. It is not your fault, nor his. And is that not the most irritating thing? If he did pine after you, I could box his ears for being a fool when I have shown him plainly how I felt. But now... Yes, said Lauren, thinking of Zane and then of Jordell. I learned the same thing myself just before we left the seat. Sometimes the deepest cut comes from the one who did not intend it and who had no other choice in the first place. It was definitely, I mean, it was like, boy, if there was an Olympics for crap editing, you know? Chapter 40 done, motherfucker. So I want to reiterate, we are about to get into spoiler territory of all of the spoiler territory. And also, I want to issue a trigger warning for sexual assault. It's not, I mean, it's not, it's me, so it's not like lovingly written descriptions of sexual violence or anything like that. It does happen. So just tossing that out there, and just so you know. So anyway, and also again, massive fucking spoilers. Chapter 41. All right, later, Traxton. Good night. Chapter 41. She rested that day and went to sleep shortly after the sun went down. When she woke the next morning, her chest hardly hurt at all, at least not with any sharp pain. There was a gentle soreness that penetrated deep into her chest, and it swelled when she tried to move her arms. But Chet changed her bandages, which Uzo had shown him how to do, and she got a good look at her wound for the first time. It was much smaller than she had thought it would be, only a little larger than her fingernail, and the blood was already solid. The guards of Yeren use narrow arrowheads, said Chet. It lets them pierce chain and sometimes plate, but it lessens the wound, and thank the sky for that. With his help, she got dressed and left the tent. Oh, sorry to hear that, Bodegazilla. Outside, she found she could walk quite easily. She did not hurt anywhere but the shoulder, and as long as she did not move that too quickly, it was almost as though there was no injury at all. That is good, said Chet. Uzo told us that the injury was not very serious, and that it was only the shock of it that made you fall unconscious. It made you fall senseless. Even so, you seem to be healing remarkably quickly. It was true. She wondered about it, and then recalled what Zane had told her in the Academy's bell tower about the mystical properties of Magestones. Was this another of them? In any case, she was glad of it. As she sighed and stretched in the early morning light, Naya came out of her own tent. She smiled to see Lauren up and about. Good morn, Nightblade. How is your wound? Better than yesterday, said Lauren, and I suppose that is all that can be expected. That is good to hear, said Naya. Are you ready to try a walk? I found a path in the jungle yesterday that leads to a beautiful clearing. I think you would enjoy it. Lauren glanced at Chet, but he smiled and patted her hand. I should go out hunting again, he said. Go, it will be good for you. I will not be gone long, said Lauren. Then she followed Naya, who struck out at once, heading south between the trees. Soon Lauren saw the trail that the mystic had spoken of. It was an easy enough walk and went up and down a series of hills that ran along the base of the mountain. Once or twice it crossed the stream, the same one that ran out of the mountain and came flowing all the way south. Lauren remembered their escape from that place with a slight shiver. Naya saw it and looked her over. Is something wrong? Does it hurt? No, said Lauren. I only remember the cavern under Yawamba. Naya nodded and then fixed Lauren with a crafty look. Aye, and I remember... And I remember you guiding us through it without pause. How did you see down there, anyway? Do not tell me you have good eyes. The place was pitch black. Lauren shrugged. She had not revealed her dagger to any of the mystics, for she could not know who among them was trustworthy with its great secret. Even now she could feel it pressing against her ankle in her boot. I cannot explain what I do not understand. I could see, and I do not know why you could not. Said Naya, frowning at her. Very well. Keep your secrets, Nightblade. But come along. We are near the place I wanted to show you. The ground rose up now, up to the top of a ridge that was like a first step leading up a grand staircase all the way to the mountains high above. There on the top of the ridge was the clearing. When they reached it, Naya waved her arm expansively out towards the lands below as though presenting a fine feast. It took Lauren's breath away. They were not so very high, but the land before them fell down and down so that she could see for what seemed like endless leagues. Jungle stretched without breaking, except to the southeast where she could see the village of Serafu, smoke rising from its chimneys. But the rest was a verdant rug that went on forever, and the sun a golden coin glinting in a sky like the ocean. It is wonderful, Naya, said Lauren. I am glad you brought me here. Come, sit with me, said Naya. Do you need help? Lauren dropped and crossed her legs upon the ground. No, thank you. It is as I said, the wound hardly troubles me if I do not jostle it. That is good, said Naya. She flashed a smile. I will try not to jostle it, then. Lauren returned the smile, but she did not feel the same thrill course through her that she had during all the long journey across Feldamar. The memory of Naya's battle rage, of the way she had cut down those people inside of Yawamba, would not quit her mind. You will not have an opportunity to. Oh, come now, said Naya. At least be coy when you rebuff me. After what we went through in Yawamba together, I deserve at least that much. It is Yawamba that is the problem, said Lauren. You went half mad in there. You did not only attack guards, but unarmed merchants. It was as though no amount of blood could sate you. Naya frowned. We needed to escape, and we were bringing a prisoner with us. Any pursuer could have overtaken us easily. They were a threat, and I removed them. I understand that, said Lauren, and inside she thought, do I honestly? Am I that different from the girl who left the birchwood so long ago? But the answer was the feeling of unease in her heart. Yet I saw you, Naya. You enjoyed it. The mystic's nostrils flared, and she looked away. Mayhap I did, but not in the way you think. I have always been angry, Lauren. You must have seen that yourself. Long ago I learned to control that when I fought, to harness it into a sort of madness. It makes me strong. In the moment I may be a killer. She put a hand on Lauren's knee. But that does not mean I am always a killer. I can be gentle as well. Lauren wanted to pull her knee away, but she restrained herself. Once I wanted that. But I have told you that I am Chet's and he is mine. More clearly than ever now, I know why. Chet and I have been by each other's sides for most of our lives. We know each other. We understand each other. He feels the same way about killing as I do. You're a fine woman, Naya, but you and I will never have what Chet has. How many times must I tell you that I do not want what you and Chet have, growled Naya. She leaned forwards, trying to kiss Lauren. Stop, said Lauren. She shot to her feet at once, her fists clenching. Stop, said Lauren. She shot to her feet, awkward without the use of her left arm, and her right fist clenched. I have told you plainly, and already you have skirted dangerously close to the wrong side of the law. Leave me be. Slowly, Naya rose to her feet. She looked down at Lauren with a wry smile and shook her head. Oh, little Lauren, she said quietly. What a foolish, foolish little bitch you have been. Lauren recoiled, and then her heart stopped. for from Naya's eyes a pale white light glowed forth. Her form shifted and rippled. First she shrank so that she was of a height with Lauren. Yeah, of a height. Her long dark hair shortened. No. Her dark hair grew by a few fingers. Her dark hair grew by a few fingers, shrinking into her scalp, and then turned so blonde that it was almost white. Her nut-brown skin darkened further, her lips grew fuller, and as the light faded from her eyes at last, they were a light hazel, a hazel that captivated Lauren just as surely as it had the first time she saw them. Auntie stood before her, lip curling in a devilish grin. "Hello, Lauren," she said. "I can only imagine how much you have missed me." Chapter 41! Alex, are you hearing this? Are you learning this for the first time? Is this your first exposure to this? I'm telling you, this is not the best way to find these things out. Wait, what? Oh, thank you so much. Her dark hair grew by a few fingers and then turned so blonde that it was almost white. Thank you. Thank you very much. Chapter 42. Lauren turned and fled for her life. Her feet pounded down the path back towards the camp, jostling her shoulder and making her wince as she plunged into the trees. She feared to look behind her, to slow even that much. "Oh, Lauren," called Auntie. "Why have you always been so coy?" The voice sounded close, forcing Lauren to turn against her will, but the Weremage had vanished. Lauren whirled, seeking her in the jungle, but saw nothing. "Why? How long?" she called out. If she could get Auntie to talk, she might be able to tell the woman's location. "When did you take Naya's place?" "You stupid, stupid girl." The voice came floating from her left, and Lauren turned. Still she saw nothing. "It has always been me, from the very first time when you made your moon eyes at me upon the seat." "That is a lie," said Lauren at once. "You were kind. You acted as though I wanted you?" Auntie laughed long and cruel. "As I said, a stupid girl. So stupid you very nearly betrayed the love of your life for a pair of strong arms." She was trying to circle around, to come between Lauren and the path back to camp. "Chet!" screamed Lauren, breaking into a sprint and ignoring the pain in her chest. "Chet!" The jungle was silent. For a moment she wondered if Auntie was still there, stalking her, or if the Weremage had decided not to chase her, and instead to go back for the camp. She must reach it first. If Auntie hurt any of the others... Auntie leapt out of the trees, right in front of Lauren, who tried to skid to a halt. But the Weremage's hand darted out and seized her shoulder. Lauren cried out with pain and fell to her knees. Auntie sneered down at her. "The mighty Nightblade," she said. "How long I have waited to bring you low, but I could not have imagined how sweet it would be. Almost as sweet as the taste of you upon my lips." "Why?" gasped Lauren, as Auntie continued to squeeze her wound through the bandage. "Why all of this?" "Oh, it was so very hard not to kill you until now," said Auntie. Without removing her grip, she knelt, her face only a handbreadth from Lauren's. "Even the delightful charms of your eyes, darkness take them, did not still my wrath, my desire to taste your blood upon my knife. But I knew I must be patient. I knew I must wait, for I knew in the end you would bring me to Damaris." Her free hand pulled down her collar. Then Lauren saw that she still had Naya's ruined throat, the mass of scar tissue that spoke of a grievous wound. It had not changed with the rest of Auntie's body. "She gave me this. She gave me this because of you. I lay in that sewer for days as I tried to stitch my own neck together, and still it is ruined because of you." Her voice was little more than rasping breath now, sweet and pungent in Lauren's nostrils. "That is why I needed you. Needed you both, you see. But while I waited, while I followed you as you bumbled your way across Feldamar in search of her, I decided that you would be mine before the end." Lauren struck all at once, hoping to surprise her. Her right fist... Her right fist slammed into Auntie's ruined throat, and the Weremage coughed violently just before Lauren crushed her nose with her forehead. She fought to gain her feet, but Auntie recovered, sweeping her legs out from under her with a vicious kick. Lauren crashed down upon her back, screaming as agony lanced her shoulder. Auntie leapt atop her, drawing something from her pocket. She threw it in Lauren's face. In her defense, the big arm, and not just any big arms, like those particular big arms, like, who wouldn't have done the same thing in Lauren's place? We know Kristen would have. We're pretty sure Alex would have. Hell, if I was Chet, I would not be confident that Megan would not have. Auntie leapt atop her, drawing something from her pocket. She threw it in Lauren's face, a fine powder, burnt orange. Lauren gasped without thinking and felt it enter her lungs. Her body seized up, arms twitching, and then they ceased to move at all. She felt utterly limp, her limbs refusing to answer the call of her mind as Auntie grinned down at her. A poison, said Auntie. It may kill you in time, if I use enough of it. For I will use a very great deal, Lauren, a very great deal. But mostly, I will use it to hold you in place. Because I do not wish for you to go anywhere, Nightblade, not while I carve you up a piece at a time. She drew a knife from her boot and held it up. Lauren tried to recoil, but she could not move. It was the knife from her dream. Old, rusted, dirty. Far below the quality one would expect of a merchant, but just right for a madwoman who lurked in the sewers of Cabras. Lauren could not even scream. Only her eyes obeyed her, and even that was sluggish. I want you awake for all of it. I want you to feel every bit of it, every cut. And I want you to remember all the while, Lauren. She leaned down, her lips brushing against Lauren's ear. I want you to remember that you almost chose me, that you almost gave yourself to me in every way instead of the boy you claimed to love. Lauren! Auntie whirled. The voice was Chet's, but it came from a distance, somewhere off through the trees. He called out again. He was closer now. He was coming this way. No, sky above, no, thought Lauren. Run, Chet, please. Darkness take me, run. Why did I call out for you? Atop her, Auntie gave a growl, but then she froze. She turned and looked down at Lauren, an evil look in her eye. You told me that Chet knows you, that he understands you. You are wrong. Let me show you. Light flowed from her eyes once more, and her body began to shift. Her blonde hair turned black and grew out, and olive skin turned to white. The transformation ended. The transformation ended, and panic seized Lauren's breath, for she stared into her own eyes. Auntie had taken on Lauren's likeness. Indeed, she looked identical, for they wore the same dark brown trousers, the same white shirt, though Auntie's was somewhat too large, for it had been sewn for Naya's larger frame. Come along, girl, said Auntie, and Lauren shuddered inwardly to hear her own voice from that mouth. I mean to give you quite a show. The Weremage leapt up and threw her arms beneath Lauren's, dragging her off to the side of the path. She rolled Lauren beneath some bushes there and ripped some branches from the trees, throwing them over her body. But she knelt and moved the branches slightly so that Lauren could look out. You can see me, can you not, girl? Whispered Auntie. I would not want you to miss a thing. Then she rose and turned, just as Lauren heard Chet approach from down the path. Lauren, he exclaimed. There you are. I heard you call my name and I feared something was wrong. Sky above, no, thought Lauren. She railed at her body, screaming for her arms to move, but they would not comply. Wrong? What could be wrong? Said Auntie. She waited for Chet to come to her so that she could be sure Lauren would see them. Chet stepped up to her, and Auntie slid her arms up to lace her fingers behind his neck. She drew him close and gave him a long, passionate kiss. Lauren wanted to close her eyes, but even that was beyond her power. Nothing can be wrong when you are with me. I am flattered, though that has not proven to be the case in recent days, said Chet, giving her a wry smile. Chet, look to the left, thought Lauren. Please, please look to the left. See me. His head jerked up, and a mad hope filled her that somehow he had heard her. But he looked the other direction. Where's Naya? After she showed me the clearing above, she went off on her own. She said she would make for the camp in a while. I'm surprised you did not see her, but glad as well, for it means I have you alone. Slowly her hand slid down his chest, and then around his waist. He responded by wrapping his arms around her and leaning in for another kiss. And while we are here, and alone, her hand slid around to his front, toying with the buckle of his belt. Chet drew back, laughing with embarrassment. Lauren, what are you doing? We're in the open jungle. And why should that matter? No one is near to see us. Auntie smiled up at him and cocked an eyebrow. Her lips had a wry twist and her eyes shone with promise. That is not my smile, Chet, screamed Lauren. You know it. You know my eyes. Look at them. But he only glanced back over his shoulder, a silly grin stealing across his face. What if Naya should return and look for you? She will not, said Auntie. I told you, she makes for camp. When he still seemed hesitant, she kissed him again and finished removing his belt while their lips were still locked. They fell to the floor of the path, tearing at each other's clothes. Soon Auntie rolled Chet onto his back and sat atop him. Their low, hushed moans soon mingled with the sounds of the jungle. Too many soons. Their low, hushed moans mingled with the sounds of the jungle while Lauren could do nothing but watch. And then she blinked. At first she did not notice, but then it happened again. She tried once more, consciously, and her eyelids responded. Lauren tried to move her hand. KJ Jones? No, I don't. I don't think it's the strength of their bond. I kinda think it's Chet. He's very... I don't know. I don't know that anybody, you know... I don't know if the situations were reversed. I don't know that Lauren would have known. You know what I mean? And I definitely don't think it was like the strength of their bond or anything like that. They're both... No, she's not very powerful at all, actually. She can only change her appearance. She can't turn into a bear or a bird or anything like that. Here's the thing. Chet and Lauren are a pair of 16-year-old kids. And it's not like and they were raised in a society where they have there's no thing that would make them feel ashamed about sex or sexual contact or anything like that. And they both demonstrably have really good sex drives. So either one of them meets the other one in the woods and it's like, you want to just do it like really quick? Just like right now? Both of them are going to be like, oh yeah, okay. Like, you know? That's my interpretation of it anyway. Lauren tried to move her hand. Her fingers twitched. Could the poison be wearing off already? Auntie had made it sound as though she would be frozen for hours. Surely the Weremage would not have left her here if the paralysis would wear off so soon. And then she heard Zane's words again. The remedies of the apothecary have little effect upon a wizard who eats magestones, and the same is true for poisons. The magestone she had eaten in Yawamba, it was still within her, burning the poison out of her blood. She tried again, and this time her hand moved, jerking from her stomach and landing on the dirt beside her. She heaved again, and it edged towards the path a little more. She has a lot of practice turning into other people. Yes, that's true. Yeah, he was a little shy about it for a bit. But I mean, he was shy from like, I don't think he wants like Naya to come back and like watch them. But he wasn't shy and like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. He was like shy and like, don't you think somebody's going to find us? And as soon as Lauren was like, I don't think anybody's going to find us, he was like, okay. Sounds good to me. Chet and Auntie were growing more passionate with every moment, and the Weremage sounded nearly frenzied at their tryst. She looked down at Chet, smiling fiendishly at him. Do you love me, Chet? Of course, he said, breathless. Do you know me? What? Distracted for a moment, he frowned up at her. Slowly, painfully. Lauren dragged her feet up towards her body, her knee bending up into the air. Her body jerked towards the path as she let the knee fall, but though the branches that covered her rustled, it was not loud enough to hear. Without warning, Auntie slapped Chet's face. Do you know me better than any other? Lauren, what in the darkness below? Tell me, cried Auntie. Neither of them had bothered to remove their tunics, and she seized the front of his now. Tell me you know me better than any other in all the 9 kingdoms. Chet shook his head and tried to push up on his elbows. Enough, Lauren. I do not know what you... Auntie slammed him back down on the ground. In an instant, her old rusted knife was in her hand. She pressed it against his throat. No, thought Lauren. She saw Damaris holding the knife in her dream, saw it part Chet's skin, saw his blood splashing upon the ground. Chet, she croaked. She lifted one hand, shaking as it rose into the air, helpless. Chet, but he could not hear her. Tell me, rasped Auntie. Chet went white with fear. Lauren, what are you... Lauren heaved herself out of the bushes, crashing down on the grass of the path. The sound drew Chet's attention at last, and he looked over at her. His face became a mask of confusion, and then terror as he looked up at Auntie. Chet, gasped Lauren, run. Auntie smiled at her, a feral grin. Feral! So many feral grins! Such feral! Many savage. Wow. Vicious. Don't think we've used vicious in quite a while. Kristen posted something on Tumblr. I don't know where she got it from. Obviously, she didn't think of it, but like it popped up on her blog, and it was the most relatable thing to me in the entire fucking world. Me as I'm writing the first draft. Yes, these actions are good. These actions feel natural to this character. It is what they would do in this moment. Me when editing my book. Why the fuck does she lean on the door frame 17 times in this chapter? Literally me. Auntie smiled at her, a vicious grin, and her eyes began to glow. She transformed back into herself again, keeping the knife pressed to Chet's throat. Chet recoiled with a cry, but he could not move from under her with the blade pressing against his skin. Well met, lover, said Auntie. Are you not enjoying yourself? Am I not twice the bedfellow Lauren is? She is little more than a girl, after all. Chet panicked and tried to snatch her hand away, but Auntie seized his wrist and slammed it back into the ground. She did not move the blade from his neck, nor did she stop her writhing on top of him. Oh, but you are no longer so excited, said Auntie, pouting down at where they were joined. With a flash of mage light, she turned into Naya. Do you prefer another? I noticed you eyeing me from time to time as we rode together. Or was that only jealousy? No, you desired someone else, did you not? Another flash of mage light, and now she was Weath. Yes, little Weath, your friend, the one whose fragile little neck broke so easily just before I pitched her from the walls of Yawamba. Stop, groaned Chet, turning his head as though he could sink into the ground away from her. Please, stop it. Lauren tried to rise, tried to crawl towards them, but her legs were still sluggish. Only her arms would obey her commands. Then she remembered her dagger. It was still in her boot. Shaking, she reached for it. Do not tell me you did not want her. You have had a greedy mind, little boy. Auntie's cruel smile dissolved into a grimace of hate, and I will make you pay for your every untoward thought. The dagger slid easily from its sheath. Lauren hefted it, feeling the weight. The handle is the heavier end, she thought, turning it to hold it by the blade. Sky above, do not let me miss. She threw the dagger. It sank into Auntie's arm. The Weremage screamed in pain and reared back, and her blade came away from Chet's throat. He rose up and snatched her wrist and then struck her in the face before wrestling her to the ground. With his weight, he pinned her, driving a knee into her chest and holding both her hands above her head. She screamed again, but it turned into a harsh laugh. He shook as he held her down, his hands grasping at her throat. Auntie glared hatred at Lauren. You promised, you sniveling little liar. You promised you would not throw the knife at me. Be silent, screamed Chet. Be silent, you vile... You... He shoved her hand away as she tried to fight him off, pressing her face into the dirt. Oh, is this all you wanted? Sneered Auntie. To be in control? You should have said so. Have me then, if you wish. You took me. You took me without... Chet's eyes were wild, his lips drawn back in a snarl. He seized the hilt of Lauren's dagger and twisted it in her arm, drawing a fresh scream from Auntie. He seized the hilt of Lauren's dagger and twisted it in Auntie's arm, drawing a fresh scream from her. I will kill you. I believe you, said Auntie. What are you waiting for? Chet, groaned Lauren. Chet, wait. His gaze turned to her. Wait? You tell me to wait? You saw what she did, Lauren. It is what the High King's harshest law commands. Lauren tried to rise to hands and knees, but her legs would still not obey her. You are not a killer, Chet, she said. The words came thick and... slow upon her tongue, for the poison had not entirely left her. Remember what happened on the shores of Dorsey, how Zane How dare you, cried Chet, his voice rising to a great shout. That was a prisoner. He surrendered. How dare you call this the same? Incredibly, Auntie giggled. The law is clear, and I have violated it so very badly. Be silent, growled Chet. Let the mystics do it, said Lauren. They serve the king's law. Chet looked at her for a moment. She thought she saw the fury fading from his eyes, but at last he shook his head, and she saw that the anger was not gone. It had only turned to icy. It had only turned to icy. It had only turned to ice, a terrible, bloodless rage. We are the king's law, he said. This is not revenge, Lauren. It is justice. He was right. Of course he was right. Every child in Underrealm knew this edict. Lauren would not have blinked at Auntie's sentence, not if anyone else were to carry it out, but to see Chet with the blade in his hand, death in his eyes. Very well, she said softly. Lauren turned her gaze from him to look at Auntie instead. The Weremage looked back, her eyes twitching, her teeth showing in a smile as though she had never been happier. Excuse me. She was still smiling when Chet lowered the dagger and slit her throat, sending her blood gushing across the ground. A burbling laugh poured up through her lips along with blood. Then, even as Lauren watched, the flesh of her neck began to knit back together. It stopped when Chet plunged the dagger through her eye into her brain. Auntie's body spasmed once and then lay still. And then after a moment, a final glow came from the Weremage's eyes. Slowly she transformed one final time. Weath's face shifted and melted away, but she did not become the seductive, loam-skinned beauty Lauren had first met. Instead, her skin turned lily white. Her face a little older, mayhap the age of Lauren's mother. The hair that replaced Weath's copper was not white blonde, but frizzy and black. A woman Lauren had never seen before lay there dead. Chet rolled away from her, covering his face to hide the tears that spilled forth. It is Lauren's dagger, Chicken Sandwich. They will replace the old books, KJ Jones. And if you get the new ones and read them again, I do believe I am paid again. But even if I'm not, don't worry about it. We have enough new readers coming in all the time. Like, you don't even worry about it. Okay. 43. I say. I need to mark it as done. Chapter 42. 2 more chapters left, and they're both pretty short. Chapter 43. When Lauren could rise at last, she went to his side and tried to hold him. Chet's side and tried to hold him. Which is really a dumb thing to do after something like that happens. She went to Chet's side and tried to hold him, but he recoiled from her touch, pushing her away and shaking his head, so she merely sat by his side, trying not to look at the stranger who lay dead before her. In time, Chet's tears subsided and he rose to his feet. Lauren stood too, if more slowly, and together they made their way back towards the camp. They did not bury her. Lauren could scarcely bear looking at the corpse, and asking Chet to touch it was out of the question. Annis and Jem saw at once that something was wrong, but when they asked, Chet only shook his head and went into his tent. Lauren told them nothing she did not have to, only that Naya had been Auntie all along and that she had attacked them, and now was dead. From the moment he heard the Weremage's name, Jem's face went pale and his eyes wide. Dead? He whispered. Are you certain? Yes, said Lauren quietly. His look grew distant, and he turned from her. In a moment he, too, vanished into his tent, leaving Annis and Lauren standing there, staring at each other, not knowing what to do or even where to begin. That night, Lauren ate a meager meal. Afterwards, she went to the tent she shared with Chet. Something compelled her to stop a pace away from it. She stared at the flap for a long while, and then she turned from it, and slept in the tent that had once been Naya's. Uzo and Shiun returned the next day. Lauren was hardly surprised when they told her that Damaris had ridden south with too many guards for them to engage. So little had gone well for their party this far in the mission that this latest lack of success seemed almost expected. In turn, she had to tell them the tale of what had happened with Auntie. They listened in shock, and when they learned that Naya had been the Weremage all along, they shook their heads in disbelief. Then, looking at each other in silent agreement, they set off into the jungle towards the path that Lauren had described. Probably at the bottom of the Great Bay, somewhere close to the High King's seat, Alex, is where I would guess. When they returned from burying her, the dark look in their eyes spoke volumes of how shaken they were. They had not buried their companion and captain, a mystic. They had seen an utter stranger, and only Lauren's word told them that she had once been their sister in arms. We should ride south when we can, said Shion, after they had eaten a silent meal together around a small fire. I can follow Damaris easily enough now, but the trail may grow cold, and it certainly will once she reaches Dorsey. All right, later, Bodegazilla. Lauren thought for a moment. We will spend one more night here, she said at last. One more night of rest, for the toll has been great, on all of us. She looked across the camp. Chet still had not emerged from his tent. The next morning dawned gray and cold, and a light rain began to fall. Lauren went a little ways off from the camp and sat on a fallen tree, face turned upwards, letting the water wash away the sweat and dirt and the horror of the last few days. She sensed that the rest of them feared to disturb her, just as she herself feared to disturb Chet. But eventually, Annis came out to her and waited, hands clasped in front of her until Lauren met her gaze. Shion says we must go. The rain makes it ever more urgent that we begin the hunt, lest we lose Damaris's trail. Of course, said Lauren quietly. I will rouse Chet. He is awake and readying himself to leave, said Annis. Lauren shot to her feet and then pushed past Annis to run for the camp. There is a real Naya, but what Auntie was saying was that she has been masquerading as Naya since before she met Lauren. Lauren was like, at what point during our travels did you replace the real Naya, the one who I met at first and I was attracted to? But of course, after you replaced her, I was only still attracted to you because I thought that you were the real one. Like Lauren trying to make herself feel better. You know, like, oh, I was attracted to this woman and then Auntie came and replaced her. And so at that point, my attraction was just left over from the real one. And Auntie is confronting her with the fact that, like, no, it's been me. It's been me the whole time. You don't get to feel better about this. She came to a halt where the horses were tied up. Chet stood there, securing his pack to the saddle. He looked at her without smiling and nodded. We are riding south, she said, not sure what else to tell him. Damaris has gone towards Dorsey. I know, he said. Annis explained. Let us get on with it. He turned away and resumed readying himself for the journey. Lauren ducked her head, and after a moment walked past him to take down Naya's tent. Her tent now, she supposed. You know, though, it's not canon. Like, the real Naya could totally be alive. Well, we'll see. Soon they had mounted, and Shion led them through the jungle towards the main road. Once there, they increased their pace to to a steady trot and made their plodding way south. The jungle. Well, see, that's the thing, is that would be... Then I would be using the same device twice. Because we have already established in canon that the one woman who got away from... The one girl in Cabris who got away from Auntie was Theron. And after Theron got away, Auntie took on her likeness. Obviously older, because when Theron left Cabris, she was like 10, right? So she left. Auntie took on an older version of Theron's likeness. But Lauren's definitely going to meet Theron one day. Like, no question that's going to happen. And, like, what's going to happen then? Who knows? I don't know. I'm excited to find out, though. I know that I know a little bit what the initial meeting is going to be like. Holy fuck shit ass, Auntie is alive. I have to kill her. And Theron, no, I don't. I don't know what's going to happen from that storyline. But she's going to be like, holy fuck shit ass, Auntie is alive, I have to kill her. And Theron's going to be like, who the fuck is this crazy green-eyed bitch trying to kill me? Soon they had mounted, and Sheehan led them through the jungle towards the main road. Once there, they increased their pace to a steady trot and made their plodding way south. The jungle stayed thick on both sides of them as they passed the town of Sarafu, and long after, so that for many hours they could see nothing but the trees on either side of them. Then the trees fell away, and they came to a lip in the land, from which it spilled down a long, long way towards a great basin. The western rim was the great rock mountains and a great river, a wide river. And a wide river formed the eastern side. They themselves stood on the northern lip, and where it ended in the south, the jungle gave way to a sparsely wooded land of light brown dirt. That is the border of Dorsey, said Shion, nodding her head towards it. Damaris rides south, no doubt hoping to evade us, as well as Cal's host, which still marches west. She will not succeed, said Lauren quietly. We will capture her. I swear it. There was no longer any question of whether they should continue to pursue the merchant or return to Cal. She knew without asking that every one of them would not have turned back, not for all the gold in all the 9 kingdoms. Still, they did not ride on, but only sat upon their horses, looking down at the lush land as the falling rain soaked it. The day was winding down. The day was winding towards evening, and Lauren knew they should be pressing on as quickly as they could. Damaris would not slow for anything, not until she believed herself to be safe, but still she hesitated. After a time, she glanced at Chet. Go ahead, she murmured. We will be with you in a moment. The party obeyed without comment, and soon she and Chet were alone on the road. But he did not look at her, not even when he broke his silence at last. I do not care if you understand why I did it or not, he said. Yet I do understand, she said quietly. He snorted. Do you? I was not so forgiving when you showed Zane leniency in Dorsey. It is as you said. That was different, and I was wrong to gainsay you when it came to Auntie. Chet turned his face away from her. You may say it, you know. You may tell me I am a hypocrite. I scorned you, though it was not even your hand that held the knife. It has been a long journey, but I am not ready to take that step, said Lauren. Yet I no longer look with disdain on those who do. I still think justice should come from the law, and from the king's servants who deal in it. But there is not always time. And you did serve the law, Chet. I know that. She reached across the space between them and put a hand on his shoulder, but he shied away from her touch. I cannot, he whispered. Please. I see her. I am sorry. You have nothing to apologize for, she told him, feeling tears brim in her eyes. She blinked them away. Never. Not to me. A moment longer she waited, until he turned his face forwards again and nodded. Then she spurred Midnight into a walk, and Chet followed just behind. The sun neared the horizon, heralding the approach of night, as she led him down the long road into the lowlands. Dun dun dun! Epilogue! Epilogue. A light snow had only just begun to fall, and it dusted the Yaren camp. Damaris's tent was fine, more than fine enough to keep her head warm and dry, but she had eschewed that shelter to drink in the frozen air. She took deep breaths standing to the north of the camp, only vaguely aware of the guards who stood close to hand. Her gaze lingered on the Dortian landscape they had been riding for the last several days. Do you pursue me, Nightblade? She thought. That is good. Follow me. Follow me and never stop. Let me draw you to your doom. A shout came from behind her, and she whirled on the spot. Her guards drew closer and drew their swords. A lot of drawing, a lot of drew. Guards drew closer, then they drew their swords. The guards drew closer and unsheathed their blades. Damaris's heart skipped a beat as a figure emerged from the camp. Its form was in silhouette, rimmed by the firelight, but she knew him. Not only from his size, but from the way he moved, every little quirk of motion that had accompanied her on all the long roads of her life since they were both children. The guards fell away before him. Gregor, she sighed. He fell to one knee at her feet, bowing his head. My lady, he said. His voice was thick with emotion, and he hid his face from her as well as the guards to either side. Damaris glanced at them. Leave us, she said. They obeyed at once, marching back towards the camp. Rise, my friend, she said, taking his shoulders and lifting him up. Sky above, I have missed you more than I can say. She drew him into an embrace for a moment only, but it was enough that she could feel him shaking. I should never have left you, he said. If anything had happened at Yuamba, I would have taken my own life the moment I had avenged you upon the vermin who had harmed you. Left me, said Damaris wryly. She did not smile, but she let her eyes crinkle with amusement. If you will recall, I ordered you to remain upon the seat, and I failed you there as well, he said. I could not secure the support you require, and then a boy... She raised her hand, and he fell silent at once. I know, she said smoothly. I have heard all the tale of it already, and I do not blame you, Gregor. We are stretched thin, you and I, and we will not win every battle. All that matters is that we win more of them than we lose. We will, my lady, said Gregor, bowing his head once more. I swear it. I believe you, said Damaris, and the next confrontation swiftly approaches. Something happened at the Battle of Welmont. A rumor only, said Gregor. She fixed him with a look. It is not a rumor. His eyes did not widen, nor did his brows shift by so much as a hair. Yet from a pace away she could feel his whole body go rigid. Then, are we to make our way east? Not yet, said Damaris, sighing. At least not while hounds nip at our heels. I am being followed. I have heard. Gregor's voice rumbled with fury, his fists each almost as large as her head coiled by his sides. The girl. The Nightblade of the High King, you mean, said Damaris, letting her mockery emerge plain in her tone. I will take a party. We will come upon them in the night and destroy them. No, no, that will not do at all. Lauren herself played no small role in the Battle of Welmont, though she cannot possibly have learned what has occurred because of it. Yet we will ensure she comes to regret it. Damaris' eyes narrowed. Damaris' eyes narrowed as she remembered the storeroom in Yuamba, where Lauren had dumped her like a sack of flour with her wrists bound together. And she remembered the boy Lauren's age who had been there with her. Damaris had seen the look in Lauren's eyes when she beheld him. It sent a lance of vicious joy through her, and her breath quickened. And when we are sure she is well acquainted with the deepest pits of sorrow, then, Gregor, you may do what I should have ordered the moment we first laid eyes upon her. Then you may kill her. Dun, dun, dun! Oh, man. Ugh. You still don't get what? What don't you get? Haha. Well, KJ Jones. I can tell you. Well, you won't. I can't tell. I can't. There's no hints. There's no hints about like Lauren's involvement. But as far as what happened at the Battle of Welmont, there is a hint in Mystic. There is a hint in the addenda. There is a hint in Shadeborn. I think those are the only places where there are hints. Yeah. The addenda, the extra behind the scenes stuff that's in Volume 1. The extra history and backstory and all that sort of thing. Hey, Rhea. I am pretty close to the end, yes. Sadly. I said where the hints can be found. Mystic, the addenda, Shadeborn. Do I know who the necromancer is? Of course I do. Absolutely. I know who the necromancer and the life mage are. Hinted at. No, I've said who the necromancer is before, but it's not. Um, have I said? Have I said or have I only hinted? Anyway, it's not. Yeah, it's. I kind of regret doing that because there's quite a few people who. What is? Don't we have a command for this? No, what is it? No, not a chance. Not a chance, KJ Jones. I can confirm that you do not know the necromancer or the life mage. You might have seen them, maybe, but you definitely don't know them. I'll say that. That's what I can say with certainty. You might have seen one or both of them. Yeah, first Underrealm author's note ever. Hilarious, Wordwin. I get it. I see what you did there. Ha. Belladonna Rose, greetings. Doing good here, Belladonna Rose. Hey, Belladonna Rose, you want to see a new book cover? I'm very excited about this. It's my new favorite new book cover. Check it out. That's the new cover for Weremage. Do. I'll let everybody bask in that for a moment. Oh my god. Right? It's incredible. Oh my god, I can't wait to have that in print. And by the way, I'm getting that poster. I don't actually get every single Underrealm poster, which I probably should, and I probably will at some point, but like, that poster is a priority. What should have been a hint? Right. Yeah. And I'm really glad that you didn't get the hint until after the book. That makes me very happy because that was my number one worry with putting her on the cover. Oh, that sucks, Belladonna Rose. Pretty much done, Ria. As soon as I write this author's note, I'm going to export this and send it to the editor. Nope, Karen has never touched Weremage, actually. To my great embarrassment and shame. Ria, you've seen the done cover, right? Yes. No, sorry, you've been here. You didn't just arrive. My bad. Can everybody tell that I'm very excited about the Weremage cover? I don't know if it's obvious. The read through. What I now do is I do a read through of my final edit before I send it to Karen, and then I do a read through of the print book after Karen. All right, good night, Bodegazilla. Yay, Belladonna Rose. I have not heard of any of those people, KJ Jones. Yes, ma'am. The first trans main character might be in a comic book, but we'll see. There is a comic artist who I've been wanting to work with for a long time, and I keep basically approaching them, and they keep going, I don't know if I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I have time. I don't know if I can work it into my schedule and everything like that. And so I keep hiring them for other stuff. They're actually my sketch artist, the one who drew the Weremage cover sketch. So I have kept hiring them to do different stuff, and I think the first was, oh yeah, sorry. I think the first time I approached him, he was like, because from the beginning I offered to pay up front to do the comic, and I think that when I approached him, he was probably like, who the fuck is this person like approaching me to pay me to do a comic? Like, I'm just a webcomic artist. Like, why would he do that? And I think that after like a year and a half of hiring him, he's like, oh, I guess he's decently legit. Like, we've worked together and we work well together and everything like that. So we are going to be doing a comic. He's going to be my first comic artist. Like, I have to work it into the schedule, but that's going to happen. And so I have no idea what story we're going to tell, but I'm going to talk to him and I'm going to be like, do you want to do a comic about a trans character? Because that's the other thing, is I would rather have the first trans main character written by a trans person. That just makes sense to me. Not that it's going to be like, that just makes sense. And I don't want that to be like, I don't want that to be a hold up on doing it necessarily, because I have, I've written a bisexual woman, and I've written a Middle Eastern, person in a polyamorous relationship, sort of, and I'm not any of those things. But I want to enable creators of the same type. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. I'm honestly pretty looking forward to that one. I am a comic reader. I have 2 whole shelves of comics down here. I need to get back into reading them on a more regular basis, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Um, I, I have not written one yet, Ria. I need to. I should, but I haven't yet. I think there probably will be one in Tales of the Wanderer. Okay, so again, I don't like to blame my readers. This is clearly my failing as an author. But y'all, in Darkfire, Jor-Del is in the Shade Stronghold, right? And he's in the mess hall. And there's a shade. They go to the mess hall and they sit down. And there's the two shades who are really mean and, you know, cranky and everything like that. And they're all like bitching at Jor-Del and Lauren. And then they storm off. And then another shade sits down. And he's just like a normal guy. He's a soldier. And yeah, he's a shade, but he's just a dude. He's there for the paycheck, right? Jor-Del fucking flirts with him. And the guy flirts back. Okay? It fucking happens. I tried to be like, boom. Like, they're... Look at the two of them flirting with each other. Look at the way, look at the things they're saying to each other. I like that. Anyway. And I know you didn't read it that way at all. My failing as an author. But like, that was when I realized it was sometime after Darkfire, or maybe during the Mystic and Darkfire writing process, that I realized, oh, like, I clearly can't, like, when I write Lauren meeting Auntie for the first time, and I'm trying to have Lauren be all like, I mean, frankly, aroused, you know, horny. And people are like, oh my God, she's like so terrified when she first meets Auntie. I'm like, no, she's, like, again, I'm the author. It's my fault. But, and that was when I realized, I was like, okay, I need to make it canon. I think it was during Shadeborn, actually. I need to make it canon, you know, like, it needs to happen. Something actually needs to happen. Otherwise, people aren't going to get it. Like, the whole time, Jem is constantly dismissing Annis and smiling at other boys and, like, fawning at these big strapping men and everything like that. And, like, the amount of people who understood that Jem was gay was, like, was everybody who I said he's gay. And then they read him and they were like, oh, I can see that. I was like, fine, I guess I just have to actually have people, like... Jem was obvious? Okay, well, I'm glad one person thinks so. Yeah, I guess the only reason I didn't want to do that was because, like, I can't write... I don't feel like I can explicitly write Lauren being aroused explicitly without feeling like I'm doing it for myself somewhat. Like, male author writing a female character. She titted boobily down the stairs, you know? It's like, she leaned and stretched in the early morning sunlight, her breasts pressing against her shirt, her nipples standing out like diamonds, da-da-da-da-da. You know? They bounced as she went into the shower, and it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ. So if I start describing, like, what's happening to Lauren anatomically when she sees Naya, I feel like that is for me, you know? Oh my. Who am I forgetting? Am I forgetting anybody? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Yeah. Sorry to hear that, KJ Jones. Oh, Evan's uncle is gay. Yes, thank you. Was. No, you're thinking of Cyrus. Cyrus is Eben's distant cousin. I think second cousin? Second cousin once removed. If I'm remembering the genealogy correctly. No problem, KJ Jones. All right, later, KJ Jones. Night nights. Hey, what's up, Green? All right, later, Alex. Good night, good night, everyone. Good night, Alex. Okay. Oh, man. Done. I feel like that author's note was harder to write than the last couple chapters of the book. Fuck me. Really? Damn. let me wrap up the stream.
How long?
I'm just checking the manuscript and then I'm sending it off to Karen. Okay, what's the first chapter that has multiple sections? 8. Yeah? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah, it can. Oh, God. Perfect. Okay, done. Okay, y'all. Done book. Oh, Lord. I have streamed for... "10 hours today." So that's fun. Actually, it was fun. I had a good time. But now I'm going to go. Because I'm tired. And the book is done, and I sent it to Karen. Now Karen just has to edit it. Edit it. Now Karen just has to edit it. And then once it's edited, the edit is done. But yeah. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Crazy. Woo! Oh, man. So I have to decide what I'm going to work on next. I have the edits back on Shadeborn, so I could do that. But you know what I want to do? I want to fix this. I want to fix the Alchemist's Touch, because once it's fixed, once this is done, the shitty editor has been removed from my books. That whole phase of life is done. Completely done. Poof. So anyway, that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm almost positive that's what I'm going to do. And we have a new cover coming for it soon too. So that's fun. And once that's done, then I have Shadeborn to edit, to go through Karen's edits. Once that's done, I'll have Weremage back. Once that's done, I'll have Alchemist's Touch back. And then I have to do a proofread of the last two Academy Journals books. And then we're done. It's so close. Oh, man. All right. I'm taking off for the night. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you. I feel like most people have left already. But thank you, Wordwin, Alex, Green, KJ Jones, Rhea. Oh, God. Everybody, Belladonna Rose. Everybody who is here. You're all awesome. Don't forget to pre-order Nightblade Epic Volume 1. Coming in just under a month. It's very exciting. And can't wait. See y'all on another stream. Bye!